And then, surely enough, they were counting the people that were in my group. Judith,
no, 10 seconds here.
Not yet. I can tell.
Just touch my shoulder.
Yes.
So tell me, Judith, what happened when she covered you and
Well, my sister covered me the best way she could, and then surely enough, they were counting the people that were in my group, and I was missing, so they came running and searching for me with bayonets, and they went from one layer of the other, and then finally they came on top. And I was there, and they were sticking those bayonets all around. And I guess my parents must have been watching over me at that time or whatever, because I could feel the bayonets coming like maybe an inch or two away from me. And somehow they didn't stab me, they didn't pound me. But right after that happened and they ran away, I had to report to my group, because otherwise who knows what would have happened. They separated us. They would not let my sister and myself be together, because my group was supposed to go to the so-called FKL, which was Frauenkonzentrationslager, also a part of Auschwitz and Birkenau. But we were with a group of, somehow or other, Gina couldn't come to me, and we could not get together. We would get beating, and they would tear us apart. We could not get together. And so they put me with the group of Hungarian girls, and there were only, as well as I can recall, only 4 Polish women. Was my mother's friend, Mrs. Grobler, and her daughter, Wandzia, and another girl who also had sisters with the other transport where my sister was in, and her name was Basia Fuchs, and I, and the rest were mostly Hungarian women. And they took us to that Frauenkonzentrationslager and kept us there maybe for a week or so.
Did you do anything in that camp?
No.
No.
Absolutely nothing. We were sitting in that, we were just waiting to be transported someplace else. And I got very sick. And they took me to a hospital there that was called the Revier. That's what they called it. And I was there. Of course they were coming, they were pulling all the sick people to crematorium. I do not know or recall how I got out of there. It's a blank in my mind, whether this Mrs. Grobler and the 3 other women or whatever, whether they somehow helped, whatever. It is a complete pass for me. I have no idea. I just know that all of a sudden I found myself among them, going on another transport, being relocated again. And this is when we went.
What was wrong with you?
Oh, I had first of all, I had a touch of typhus.
Yeah.
But since we were, we had injections they gave us immunization in the Kabelfabrik, because we were coming with the Poles, so I did not in contact with the others, so I did not die. I didn't come down with it, but that was the beginning, because then I got it second time in Bergen-Belsen also.
Yeah,
and then after
so let's go back.
But anyway, I don't remember how long I spent in Auschwitz, altogether, 3 weeks, 4 weeks or whatever, no more than that, maybe even less than that. And I
It
want
was in
to.
that woman camp.
Yeah, in the
Woman
Concentration lager. And from there one day we were taken to, but this was terrible.
Judith, tell me, when you were taken from Plaszow to Birkenau, were you put in what were you taking? Were you taken with trucks?
We were taken with trucks to a train station. Then we were in the wagons in train station, and by the time, I don't know how, the distance is not very long from Krakow, Krakow rail station to Auschwitz, but it seemed that it was very long. And there were, and it was, this was a harrowing thing, because by the time we arrived in Birkenau, there were so many dead people in that train. And then there were the Germans were with dogs running around. And there were screams in Birkenau. And it truly was a scene from, if you ever imagine how hell has to look. It was, I really cannot talk about it.
I know, that's why I wanted you to go back and tell us. I know it's very hard.
It's just, I am trying to omit this whenever I am being asked, because...
Remember, this is for everybody later on to remember what happened to us survivors.
But that was so terrible, because dogs were attacking people and were tearing them apart. And blood was running from people, and the German were shooting here and there, and screams and yells, and people undressing and naked. It just absolutely something that I think if I'll remember in details, I'll go insane. I can't do it. I'm sorry. Okay. I just can't do it.
Okay, just go ahead where we stopped off when they took you when you were in that woman in Auschwitz. Relax now for a second.
Anyway, we went from Auschwitz. We were loaded on trains.
Again, the same thing.
Yeah. On trains that were different. We were not as crowded there. And then we went just for a little while with the train. And then we were standing on a station, we didn't know where we were going actually. Then we were moved from one train to another train, and this time there about 10 of us in a regular train, and we were so hungry. We were so hungry, it was unbelievable. There was the four of us, Mrs. Grobler, Wandzia, Basia, and I, and there was one a Czech lady that was a Gentile.
And do you know why they separated you from them?
I don't know. They took a few groups, and apparently maybe the other train just couldn't go by, so they transferred us to another train. But there were 8 or 10 of us or whatever in this little compartment. And we were so hungry. Then we were going toward Gross-Rosen, and we stayed, and we stopped on a railway station someplace. And there was right next to our train was another train with freight train with open wagons, and there were mountains of cows' feet or horses' feet or whatever, with the hair, with everything, on this thing, and we were so hungry, and so and was night, and we stopped there on this place. And so the girls in my compartment decided that since I am the smallest one, they pushed me through those through the window, holded me by my feet, and I was trying to grab one of those legs, those cow legs. And I don't know, after this, and of course everybody had to look, because if the guard would notice, they would shoot us all. But I got a hold of that leg with the hair and with everything. And the lady that was Gentile, the Czechoslovakian lady, she still somehow or other, she had a watch, gold watch or whatever, with her. So she went to the end of the train and asked the guard that he had a little stove there. And we took the pail that we used to relieve ourselves on it, and we emptied it. And she gave him the gold watch that he would bring us some water and put the leg.
The Czechoslovakian lady, was she Jewish?
No, she was not.
But she was also a prisoner.
She was she must have been one of the intellectuals or whatever that they prisoned. And she made a deal with this guy that he will cook this on his little stove, and he can do whatever he wants with the hair, with everything. He will eat the meat, but he should give us the water from it. And believe it or not, she struck a deal. He gave us that water. And we were 2 or 3 days on the train, but each one of us got a little bit of that soup. And I think that saved our life, maybe, from hunger at least. But anyway, that was one of now it seems like a comical incident, but it happened. Anyway, we arrived to we were coming close to Grossrosen, but Grossrosen was high, the camp was high on the mountain, and it was very cold. It was already, December.
Was Grossrosen in Austria?
Grossrosen. Grossrosen is, I think, because we were crossing Austria and Germany back and forth. Anyway, we went to Grossrosen, and we had to push. There were Aufseherinnen around us. They were the women kapos, German kapos, and they had some belongings that belonged to them, and they had like a little cart or whatever. And we were the horses that had to pull it or push it or whatever up that mountain. Somehow or other we managed to do this. And we went to Grossrosen, and we were in Grossrosen. Was again, the hunger was unbelievable. The cold was unbelievable. My feet started, I had such a chilblains all over my feet and frostbites and everything. And, excuse me. Eventually we got to Grossrosen, and the 4 of us tried to keep together, and I don't know what happened to the Czechish lady. She was taken to another camp because she was not a Jewish person, so she had different things. And the Hungarian girls, anyway, we all were in Grossrosen for a little while, and then
separated, and then you were put together again with the Hungarians.
Sure. There were other, we weren't the only one. It was a big transport of people, but we were put together again in one of those the barracks there. And we had to clean dig holes and clean and paint and do whatever was there to do around the thing. Then after a while, they took us. We have to get out of there again. They are going to transfer us someplace else.
After you cleaned up the transfer system?
Whatever. And this time we were going by foot, but that wasn't the Dead March yet. That was still we were going a little bit, we were going by trains, and a little bit we were walking, and then we were staying in Vienna over on a bridge when there was an incredible bombing, and they parked the train right there on the bridge, apparently because they never bomb transport trains. So I wonder if that was the reason why that was their strategy to keep the trains on the bridges to protect it from being destroyed or whatever. And the bomb was
So the Allies were coming near.
Yeah, Allies were coming from one side, and the Russians were coming from the Allies. Americans, French, and English people were coming from the west, and the Russians were coming from the east. So we were all they were trying as much as possible to concentrate all the slave laborers, or the all of us, the slaves, in Germany or in Austria. Of course, we didn't know. I know this now, but I had no idea whether I was in Austria or I was in Germany or what. And then eventually we arrived somehow or other, right across the whole thing. We arrived in Mauthausen, and we were the very first women that arrived in Mauthausen. That was a male camp. And by that time it was just terrible. Just so many of us died from that, from hunger and everything else. And when we came to Mauthausen, it was in the middle of winter. It was so cold, it was so terrible. And as we were marching through, one of the male prisoners with a black triangle, I don't know what, it was one of, stick out a hand. They were behind the wires, but he stuck a hand with a pair of gloves and gave it to me while I was walking in a row of 4. So of course that was so good, because then we could share it. Each one of us could have one glove for a little while on our hands from the cold. Anyway, we came to the to Mauthausen, and that was incredible, because there were no women there, and they didn't have any other Aufseherings except the ones that came with us, and they were supposed to keep us there for a certain amount of time. So they had the prostitutes that were for the officers of the German army or whatever. They were not Jewish or Polish, they were all German. And these were the only German people throughout the war that showed us a little bit of heart. So I suppose that the saying that the prostitutes have a heart of gold, maybe it's true, because they were the only ones that when they saw how we look and what it is, they brought us some cigarettes if they could smuggle it in. They gave us a little bit of food or whatever, but unfortunately we were there a very short time. Now they took us out of there again. We were there just a few days, and they took us out on foot, and that's when the Dead March began. That started from Mauthausen to Bergen-Belsen. Through what territory, through what terrain, I have no idea. It was over 2,500 of us that left Mauthausen, and there were 400 of us that arrived in Bergen-Belsen. How I survived this, I have no idea. I don't know. I just know that I came with all 4 of us survived. Mrs. Grobler, her daughter, and Basia Fuchs and I came to Bergen-Belsen.
And that was also, what was in Bergen-Belsen?
And in Bergen-Belsen was, a hellhole. Bergen-Belsen was a place of insanity Bergen-Belsen was unspeakable. Even though there were no, but people were so exhausted by that time. Typhus was raging all around so much. People were walking skeletons. Bergen-Belsen was divided into 2 camps. One was called the death camp, where all the people that could not do anything anymore, they couldn't even come on the upper plots. They were just pushed in there and they were lying on piles, pile on top of a pile. The real, true, so-called Muslims, the very, very just walking skeletons that were insane, that were not even, they couldn't, it was just terrible. They didn't know, they were just, and so of course on the other side of the divided camp were the ones that could still somehow walk, pull themselves, come to the upper plots. So of course we did everything possible to try to be on the other side, not to be sent there, because once you were sent there, you knew you are dead. And
did they feed you anything in Bergen-Belsen?
Bergen-Belsen was just terrible. In Bergen-Belsen, what happened? Well, they fed us because we survived, but what they fed us was about one small piece of bread that was baked from sawdust, and I don't know how we could eat this, and we ate grass if we could find it. And we could, and if a soldier threw away a butt of a cigarette, this is how I got addicted to cigarettes, because I had to fill my stomach with something. And if there was a bud, I would take it and I would smoke it, fill my lungs with anything. We were, the older, like Mrs. Grobler was telling us, she was like our mother, she was my mother's age, and she was with Vanja and Basia and I. Mrs. Grobler was telling us, if you have to go to the bathroom, try not to go on look, keep it in you, so that it would maybe even, this will hold some nourishment for you, you know.
It's a smart lady.
I don't know, whatever, but she was trying to tell us all these things, and just incredible. And we met 2 or 3 people from Krakow in Bergen-Belsen. One of them was Hanka Ferber, who she was related to the Ferbers in Ghetto, I don't know, even to Hilovich or whatever, to this. But she was there with her mother, but she was there already a little bit before us. So she found out that there are a few women from Krakow, so she brought us handkerchiefs. She worked in a magazine someplace or whatever, so she brought us handkerchiefs to cover our heads, and from time to time she would bring us something, and maybe a little bit of clean water or whatever that we could. I'll never forget it.
Hanka
Ferber. Yeah, unfortunately she died of cancer at the age of 42 in Philadelphia. I am still in very. Her husband, Geo Lipschitz, was with Schindler in Brenice.
So how come he was taken to Schindler factory and she was not? They were separated?
I don't know. I have no idea how it happened. My cousin Victor Lezerkiewicz, Victor Louis, was with Schindler's, and my cousin Reggie Steiner Louis, who is married to him, lives in New York, they were practically engaged, and she was someplace else in Ravensbrück or whatever, and Victor was with Schindler. Just, not
just
always,
luck.
Whatever. Anyway, eventually what happened in Bergen-Belsen was that I was in Bergen-Belsen approximately 6 to 8 weeks when the English
liberated
us on the 15th of April of 1945. Of course, at that time, by the way, and that was the day that Vanja Grobler's mother, who was a mother to us all, died in our arms.
You mean after all this?
Yeah,
yes.
on the same day. And we were just, and Vanja and I tried to put her on the pile of bodies. And you know something, I know that she died in our arms. I know that I picked her up and Vanja picked her up. I know that Vanja said to me that we would be sisters forever and ever. I know because they are telling me this. This is another thing that I know. No, I blanked this out. That's another thing. Anyway, we were sitting on the curbs like this. We haven't had anything to eat for 3 days. They were telling us, rumors were, that was just before the liberation. They were telling us not to drink any water, that the water is poison in Bergen-Belsen. And we were just dehydrated, and it was just terrible. I had developed all kind of abscesses under my arms, and I had and one of the Germans that was still there, one day when we came on the Appelplatz and I fell down, and he took a shovel and with the wooden handle almost split my head in half. I still have a scar from here to here. That was in Bergen-Belsen. Somehow or other I did survive, and I survived, but I was so very sick that they took me immediately to a hospital and I spent almost a year in Bergen-Belsen recuperating. I had pleurisy, I had the broken jaws and the broken missing teeth, and my toes, until today, everything is just completely frozen, and all kind of abscesses all over my body and everything, and cuts.
And the English took you to that hospital?
The English took me to the hospital, and sorry.
That's all right.
Can you hear?
Is it all right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the English took me to the hospital, and I somehow or other, because I was still so very young, and they were trying to send the young children from Bergen-Belsen, because thousands upon thousands people were being died after the war, right after the war. Because I remember myself that when the English first, when they came in, whatever they had on them, they tried to give it to us. And so they had cans, like the K ration that I know now how you call it, or they had the franks and beans, little cans, and they were giving it away, and I got the franks and beans. You know, frankfurters and beans in the, and I knew I was, as young as I was, I knew that I'm going to get deadly sick, but no way could I resist to eat this. I opened it somehow, somebody opened it, and with my hands I ate them, and I got a diarrhea for the next 10 weeks from it or whatever. But anyway, I was already in hospital by then. And somehow or other, people were dying of typhus all over. And I had a touch of typhus also. And they put me in a quarantine. At that time, they were putting names of survivors on a list, so that they could send it all over Europe, so that relatives can find each other.
Go ahead.
And somehow or other, I was supposed to be sent with the children to Sweden. They were sending children to Sweden to recuperate. but I was too sick and they could not send me there. And somehow or other during this negotiation whether I can go or I cannot go, they put accidentally my name on the people that died of typhus. So for the following year, my sister...
For the following year, well,